The Top Floor Please podcast, where women in leadership rise together. I'm your host, Melissa McCormick, executive coach and founder of the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. This is your space to find clarity, grow in confidence, and lead with bold authenticity. Whether you're navigating the boardroom, building your team, or stepping into new territory, you're not alone. Let's talk real challenges, real growth, and real leadership because the top floor isn't just a place, it's a mindset. Alrighty then, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Top Floor Please podcast. I'm Melissa McCormick, your host, and today we are going to be talking about everything executive presence. It's just for mainly because this is what I do, and this is one of my superpowers when I worked back in corporate, and now I help people develop that executive presence because it truly is not a personality trait, right? It's practice. So some people say there's natural born leaders, and yes, I believe that's true, but I also believe that we can learn executive presence, which is really important as you grow within your organization and accept different roles higher up in the organization. Executive presence does matter. So having mentors, having sponsors, all of that is truly important as you grow, depending on where you want to end up in the organization. So to me, executive presence is one of the most misunderstood leadership concepts. Typically we describe it as confidence or charisma, right? But executive presence isn't about that personality, right? And I talked a little bit about that natural born leader. It's really about consistency. It's about how people experience you, especially in the moments that matter. I remember years ago, we were going through some just really challenging decisions that we had to make as a leadership team. And our let's see, he would have been a vice president of our corporate office came to visit, which was never really a good thing. But he was a great guy. And he and the president were chatting. And so they called me in because they wanted my advice on certain things. And not so much they wanted my advice, they really wanted me to do something for them, which was my job. So I come in, they tell me the situation and what's going on, and I listen, I ask questions, I make sure that I understand 100% what they're asking for, and I leave. Later on, a couple days later, the president of the company he and I were just chatting, and he says, Melissa, I just want you to know that you have a very calming presence about you. And when we were in that discussion, which was pretty important conversation that we were having, you were calm and you were quiet. In fact, he called it, you have like this quiet leadership about you that wasn't just noticed by me, but was also noticed by the other individual in the room. And I really appreciated him saying that to me because in fact, that often I think about that as being maybe the title of my second book. And that really is about executive presence. It depends on how people experience you, especially in those moments that matter. So I want you to be thinking about that as you go through your day. January is that revealing month for executive presence. This is we started the month out talking about epiphany. We went into performance reviews and what that looks like from a leadership's perspective, and then having those conversations and all of that. And then last week was about goal filtering. And this week, it's about executive presence. It's about how you show up in those performance reviews. It's how in those goal setting conversations, how you are delivering the message, what your posture is like, what your language is like, what your face is like, right? There is this term today that you're all going to know what I'm talking about when I say it, but it's the RBF. Okay, I'm not going to give that acronym. I'm not going to give the definition of it. But many of us, when we're thinking, we just have this resting face, right? This resting face that is like, because we're processing and the other person doesn't exactly know how to take it. So in those moments of uncertainty and disagreement, we need to be careful with how we are how we look, how we're showing up, what words we're using, the language, our sentence structure, all of those kinds of things, because pressure does not create presence, it reveals it. Yeah, totally. Leaders lose presence when they over explain because they're nervous, or they avoid directness because they're nervous and don't know how the other person's going to take it. They shrink in difficult conversations, so we're not necessarily clear. Like everybody knows there's an elephant in the room. We're just not quite sure what the elephant is, right? Have you ever walked into a program, or excuse me, into a meeting, and the air is kind of tense? You're like, what is happening in here? Like, what did I just walk into? Right? And nobody's telling you because nobody's talking about it. Or if somebody has to say something to you that they're not sure how you're going to take, and they just keep talking and talking and talking, you're like, put the shovel down, right? Those kinds of things. And so leaders lose their presence when they over explain, when they avoid directness, when they shrink in difficult conversations, but not because they're weak, but because they're uncomfortable, because they're nervous, because they just don't know how you're going to respond, right? And that's what I teach when it comes to DISC is preparing before you go into those kinds of conversations so that you can anticipate what you think how the other person's going to respond, and then you adjust your style to theirs. Absolutely. But executive presence needs to be practiced. So the practice of presence, executive presence is practiced. It's not inherited. It's not part of your DNA. Charisma might be, that might be personality, but executive presence isn't. We had a CFO who had executive presence in spades. That man, I learned so much from him just watching and observing how he handled things when conversations didn't exactly go the way he planned them to go, or he didn't care for an answer. Rather than jumping or attacking, he waited, and then he learned how to answer it, ask the question, the same question, in a different way. And he just kept it up until he drilled down and drilled down into what he was looking for. Yeah, you could not get away from that. But here's what executive presence is built on. It's built on calm decision making. Remember that quiet leadership, clear communication. Don't be beating around the bush. And then alignment between your words and your actions. That's a tough, I mean, that's a big one. I don't know if it's a tough one, but it's a big one. Alignment between your words and your actions. Make sure that your face, your body language, everything that you're showing up is aligned with what you're saying, because they're going to believe your body language. Whoever you're talking to is going to believe your body language more than your words. So again, we have to practice. So if you're preparing for one of these tough conversations, practice with somebody else. Find an accountability buddy. Practice. Practice. Yeah. Presence doesn't mean to be loud. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean to be loud. It means to be steady. So if you want to strengthen executive presence immediately, so here's some tips that I want you to do. I want you to start here. I want you to say less, but mean more. So be careful with your words. Don't, if you need to say one, so when I was writing my book, my editor had said to me, Melissa, if you have to say two sentences that mean the same thing to get your point across, I want you to eliminate one of those sentences. Okay, we had to reduce our word count because it was just too much fluff. So I want you to be thinking about that. Say it as direct as you can with less words, but make sure it's direct, because then you're going to have an impact. And again, that's going to take practice. I want you to pause before responding. Don't jump. Don't jump to conclusions. Pause. Pause before responding. And then I want you to lead the moment instead of managing emotions. Excuse me, lead the moment instead of managing emotions. Even if your neck starts to break out, right? Even if you start to get hives, I want you to lead through it. Lead through it. Don't worry about this. Just lead through it. These are just small shifts that you can change how people experience your leadership. There's a couple more. I want you to lead with the point, not the backstory. Leaders often lose presence by over-explaining. We talked about that earlier. Usually comes from wanting to be understood, liked, or safe. Like you want to validate, you want to justify what you're saying. So you give the backstory. Mm-mm. Lead with the point. Always lead with the point. Now, if they want to know the backstory, they're going to ask it. They're going to ask more questions. But you don't start it. It also appears as gossip. And we'll talk about gossip on another podcast. So I want you to practice this. I want you to state the conclusion first and then pause. State the conclusion and then pause. Okay, so executive present isn't saying more, it's trusting that what you said was enough. Executive present isn't saying more, it's trusting that what you said was enough. And this is especially powerful for women who've been rewarded for being agreeable. Okay, if we've been rewarded through our professional life or just through our life of being agreeable, yeah, then we need to remember that it's not about saying more, it's about what we said is enough because we're going to condense our words. Number two, I want you to slow the pace to signal authority. Speed often communicates anxiety, not urgency. When leaders talk quickly, fill the silence, or rush decisions, they unintentionally signal uncertainty. So I want you to practice this. Pause before responding. Let silence work for you. Speak 10 to 15% slower in high stakes conversation. Calm is contagious, and so is chaos. Separate emotion from message. So strong leaders don't eliminate emotion, they manage it, right? These are the three things that we talked about, and I've got a couple extras. I just wanted to go dig deeper into these a little bit more. Executive present means acknowledging emotion, right? So you've got the, right? You've got the hives that are coming up on your neck, and you can feel them coming, and you know that. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge the emotion. Look, this is ignore this. It happens. I'm a little bit nervous right now. Acknowledge it. I'm a little upset right now, and this happens when I get upset. I'm in, whatever it might mean. But you're still going to drive the message. You're still going to let them know the message. You're not going to excuse yourself and go away. Let's just say, let's pretend that you start crying. Tears, right? And you're going to say, look, these tears, ignore them. Ignore my shaky voice. It's here because I'm passionate. It's here because that's how much this means to me. But I need you to ignore it. I need you to listen. See how powerful that is? Right? You could say, I understand this is frustrating, but what we need to focus on now is, ba, 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 right? Shows steadiness. Name the issue, then state the expectation. All right, how many more do I got here? I got a couple more. All right. Four, be consistent, especially when it's uncomfortable. Presence is built through predictability. Leaders lose credibility when they avoid conflict one day and then they overcorrect the next day. Have you ever experienced that, right? Say what you mean, even when it's awkward. Yeah, executive presence isn't about being impressive, it's about being reliable. It's about knowing that people can trust you no matter what. Decide how you'll show up before you walk in. Presence doesn't start in the room. It's before the meeting. So how are you going to show up? In fact, I would challenge you to show up every day, even in your home office. Dress accordingly. Dress so that you are showing up as the person, the executive, even if you're not in an executive role. Dress as an executive, as you think an executive should be in the culture that you're in. Show up. How are you going to show up in this meeting? Prepare for it. Prepare questions. Practice what you're going to say if you have to give an update. Ask yourself, what's the outcome I'm responsible for? What tone does this moment require? What does leadership look like here? And the last one is stop borrowing authority from others, referencing titles, approvals, or they said language that weakens our presence. So, right? So own it instead of they want us to, or so and so told me, I was told to do this. No, no, no. It's here's the decision we're taking. This is the decision because you're part of that decision and you agree with that decision. Make sense? Okay. Let me go through those again. There's six of them. Lead with the point, not the backstory. Show the pace to signal authority. Separate emotion from message. Be consistent, especially when it's uncomfortable. And decide how you'll show up before you walk in. And finally, stop borrowing authority from others. Own it. Here's the decision we're taking. This is the decision. Even if somebody told you what the decision was, doesn't matter. They gave it to you. You now are part of that decision, and now you have been requested to execute it, quite frankly, right? All right, so I just want to wrap with a little bit more about the Grace and Salt Leadership Academy than what I usually do. And the reason I am is because executive presence is what we do best. Executive presence isn't about becoming someone else. It's about leading from alignment instead of approval. Make sense? Right? So executive presence is something people often describe as hard to define, but easy to recognize. You feel it when someone walks into the room and brings clarity. Somebody who can just go right into it and go, okay, so I understand this is what we're doing. Bump, bump, bump. Did I get that right? Yeah. When they speak with calm authority, that quiet leadership we talked about earlier, when they don't need to over explain or over perform to be taken seriously, they walk in with a presence. And I don't care if you are entry level or if you're executive. We all can practice executive presence. And then that helps those that are at entry level move up that ladder. But that's exactly what we do at Grace and Salt Leadership Academy. We help leaders strengthen executive presence by balancing two things that are often misunderstood as opposites. We balance grace and salt, right? Salt being truth. Grace is that empathy, that awareness, that emotional intelligence. Salt is the clarity, it's truth, it's courage to be direct. When leaders learn how to hold both of them, their presence changes, their communication lands, their confidence steadies, and the way others experience their leadership shifts. Executive presence isn't about becoming someone else. It's about leading in alignment with clarity, consistency, and conviction. And that's what we build. We build that one conversation, one decision, one moment at a time, helping you along the way. Not, I'm with you through the whole journey. I have clients who call me when they're ready to send an email that they shouldn't send. They call and go, Melissa, this is what happened. This is what I want to do. And I either talk them through it or we revise it or we go, okay, let's think through this a second. What would that look like? What would that look like if you sent that? What would that look like if somebody else forwarded that message to the president of the organization? Right? That's what we do. And we do it really well. All right. I want to just thank you so much for being here and hanging out on that top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about and you would like to share it, please do. Please subscribe. Click the button to subscribe so that more people can have the benefit of this podcast as well, and we can keep doing what we're doing. And if you are ready to learn more about executive presence, or maybe you're a CEO of a small business or of any business, quite frankly, and you would love my help, please reach out to me. You can contact us at graceandsaltleadership.com. And I would love, absolutely love to hear from you. So remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else, just lead like you. All right, we will see you next time and have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for hanging out on the top floor. If today's episode gave you something to think about or a little boost, share it with your friends to keep the momentum going. And hey, if you're ready to rise, find your voice, and lead with clarity and confidence, we'd love to connect with you. Reach out at graceandsaltleadership.com to learn how Grace and Salt can support your growth. Remember, you don't have to lead like everyone else. Just lead like you. All right, I'll see you next time on the top floor.